All right. Those of you that have your pictures up, give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Excellent. Thanks, y'all. So we're going to talk some more about blocking, punting, mechanics, and hopefully maybe get to a little bit more of your summer study guide test. You don't need to put your name or your unit in the chat box. We will, as always, put a link in the chat for a Google form for you to fill out so that you can get credit for this meeting. I will email that information to all of your uh, units so that you get credit for this. But in the chat right now, we do have some people monitoring the chat to answer questions. So if something comes up that you would like to put in the chat, go ahead and put it there. If we have time at the end, we'll go back and look at some of those questions. But right now, we'll ask everyone to stay on mute and we will work our way through these. So we've talked about these things before. Hopefully, most of you now have your rule books and you've had a moment to look through them. 2.3.1, blocking is obstructing an opponent by contacting them with any part of the body. We defined previously contact. We will do that again. This is all for review. It's going to be one of the biggest things we add to our game this year. So we want to make sure we spend a lot of time on it. Screen blocking, which is legal, is taking a position to obstruct the path of an opponent without contacting the opponent with any part of the blocker's body. I'll key you into the word path for this. Just please keep an eye on that word. Okay? It's going to come up again when we start talking about blocking downfield. Okay? So for contact, we defined contact touching an opponent with impact. So we want, if we have contact fouls, if we have blocking fouls, if we have any of these fouls in our game, we want to first make sure that the contact that happened impacted the player or the play. And I just want you all to start drilling that phrase into your head. When you have coaches that turn around and are screaming at you saying that was a foul, and you just turn right around and say, Coach, there was no impact on the play. Yes, there was contact. It did not impact the player or the play. Now, it has to be both, right? We can't just say one or the other because we have illegal contact fouls. We have huge contact fouls that can be safety fouls. If it impacts the player and or their ability to make a play, we got to have those calls. Right of place. Again, this is review for most of you who have watched the videos or been in the other meetings. Right of place is given to any stationary player, means they are not moving, who maintains normal player posture and make no movements in any horizontal direction to change their position. Right of place supersedes right of way when determining who's guilty of a foul. Okay, for screen blocking, we know we can move in a horizontal direction. We are going to watch a video again today. We're going to see what that horizontal movement looks like that. We are going to allow our screen blockers to do that. But a player that is moving in general, and again, we'll talk about this just a little bit later, but if I want to supersede everything, I have to have right of place, which means I cannot be moving. Right of way, we will define as path that is given to a player who has established a direction of movement in a regular manner, and they do not alter that direction. Player with right of way has higher privilege when determining who is guilty of a flat foul with all others except those who have established right of place. Right of place trumps right of way, and we'll talk about how this changes when we start talking about screen blocking downfield. We didn't spend a lot of time previously when we talked about blocking Okay. In this image, the blocker has the right of place and the defender has the right of way. Now, luckily, the right of place is not the same as the right of way because that screen blocker was or that defender was pretty fast and moved right around that screen blocker. Okay. Had that screen blocker established right of place 1 yard to their right, they would have taken away that defender's right of way. And had we had contact on that, once that screen blocker establishes right of place in that spot, that contact would be on the defense as a foul. Now, in this instance, in this image, if that screen blocker starts to lean, reach an elbow, reach a knee, reach anything, and contact with impact that defender trying to get to that quarterback, we're going to have a foul for illegal blocking. Okay. Once the defender is past the midline of the screen blocker's body, right? So once they've gone past this general position in their movement, our screen blocker now cannot move lateral or they are going to cause a foul. Right? If she tries to slide, the girl in the light gray shirt tries to slide to her right slightly, she is going to foul that girl. But right up until this point, she can move her feet along that yellow line, along anywhere, trying to stay in front of that defender. Again, we're going to watch a little video about it. We're actually going to watch this video. Hold on. We're going to watch this video first, and then we will go back to the other one. So, at the start of this video, we see those same two players, and we watch legal screen blocking as she continues to maintain her right of place in front of that screen block, that defender. These are from college games. We've watched some of these before, but watch these defenders move their feet and stay in front of. A little bit slower motion. Just take a look at how these defenders move, how these blockers move to maintain a position in front of those players trying to get there. So this video is from last year, so different rule sets slightly, but as most of you know, we had some blocking allowed in our game. The reason it didn't work was because those rushers had a 7-yard head of steam coming in. And that is why we had crazy, stupid fouls when players were attempting to block, screen block in our game last year. It will be better with a 1-yard neutral zone because they don't have a 7-yard head start to get up ahead of steam. So just watch this through. Now we're going to see it in slow motion. So you can see what happens and try to determine who you would call a foul on here.
Apparently, thank you.
Again, slow motion. So it should be pretty obvious that this girl in red has not established right of place. However, this girl in black has definitely established a straight line to the quarterback. So we're going to call that right of way. Again, you're going to see a video in a couple of minutes. It's going to explain this a little bit better. But if we look at it just from this point on, There's no right of place established, and she gets in the way of the girl in black's right of way. This contact is the result of red, and we would have an illegal contact foul here or an illegal blocking foul here. Okay.
Is this almost like setting a screen in basketball or taking a charge?
Yeah, we're not even gonna, I appreciate the question, but what I don't want is I don't want us to be comparing to other sports, right? I understand that we draw parallels. I'll let you draw those parallels depending on how you were taught to officiate basketball, but I don't know how you were taught to officiate basketball. And I'm attempting to teach you how to officiate flag football with screen blocking. So I want you to understand the principles that we have just gone over. I want you to be able to use the language that we have just used. I want you to take these videos that you get to see and you develop your own to decide if you think it's similar, right? We have a lot of language that we can use to determine whether something was a foul or something was not a foul. Now, we know in general, we just haven't seen a lot of this. And sometimes you got to see it a lot in order to get it, right? So if we have time at the end, I'm going to go back to that other video and we're going to watch it straight through. It's 6 minutes of screen blocking, different plays, just 6 minutes of play after play after play where we can just watch different amounts of screen blocking. Okay. But I really, really caution you all about drawing those parallels between other games. It's not the same game. We can't officiate it the same way. And we need to be using the language that is given to us when we're talking about these fouls and whether they're fouls or not. The language in the NFHS basketball rule book is different than the language in our rule book when they talk about setting a screen block. It's not the same. So we want to be able to use our language from our rule book, want to be able to use these key points that I've been outlining to everyone. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right. So the biggest concern from most people has been screen blocking downfield, right? Now, when we start talking about screen blocking moving downfield, the defender is going to establish a right of way to the ball carrier. In this image on the right-hand side, right? You're right. And if I have a blocker standing there, the only way that this blocker can be legal is if they are stationary, right? They must get on that line that is the right of way from the defender to the ball carrier, and they must be still. If they're not, they will commit a foul. All right. So keep in mind, basically, the easiest way to think about this is the defender's right of way trumps the screen blocker, the blocker's right of way. So the only way the blocker can trump the defender is to establish right of place, which means be still, not move. So if I want to set a legal screen block for my ball carrier, I have to find the line that the defender is coming in on toward my ball carrier, and I have to stand on it and I have to not move. Now we run into a couple of problems here because what's moving? The ball carrier. Which means the defender's line to the ball carrier is constantly changing. Okay? We're going to look at that. Again, I will just say it nice and loud and right there for everyone. In order for the screen blocker to trump the defender's right of way, they must establish right of place, which means be still. They cannot be moving.
Marianne, is there a time that they have to be still before? So if they step in and stop, they're now still.
Yeah, that's all a judgment call. That's all a judgment call. If they're moving at all and there's contact, then I'm putting it on, like, still means still to me. And it's totally going to be a judgment call, and we have to trust our judgment in that moment to say, hey, that blocker they were not still. everything is going to happen so quickly, you will want to see those feet perfectly still for half a second at least, if not a full second, to just make sure. And you'll see what I'm talking about when we get to these next videos. Okay. There we go. This one has slowdown and lines and a whole bunch of information in it. So you have to watch. We might watch it through twice just so everyone gets everything. Maybe we'll watch it. There we go. All right. So, a couple things. Coaches are going to ask you, do they have to have their arms across their chest? Do they have to have their arms out behind their back? Do they have to put their arms somewhere? The answer is the rule book does not state that they do. So the answer is no. However, they also cannot use those body parts to impede or contact a defender trying to get to the ball carrier. Okay, so if we go back again, we got an elbow out here on this closest girl, right? It was identified during the video. And that elbow is forcing her and contacting her to go wider than she wants to go and wider than the lane that she has previously established. So if that's the case and there's contact with impact, we could have a foul on this play, right? Same thing with the inside girl here. That arm extends and is impacting that defender's ability to get around that screen blocker. She had established really, really good right of place. Well, once she established right of place, the ball carrier changed directions and so did the defender. Well, both of them legally can change place. The screen blocker can't, right? Once I establish my right of place, that's all I get. If I try to move it and I cause contact, I'm done, okay? I'll let you watch the slow-mo of it one more time. All right. Let me point out just a couple of, Jesse, I see your hand up. Give me just a second and I'll get to your question, okay? So again, coach's biggest concern is this, right? We're obviously mimicking what a kind of blocking wall would look like on a punt return. These players, when I went out to film these videos, they were asked to go at about 50-60% speed. Okay. And we're in slow-mo then when we watch it. So I understand that it's super easy for us to start picking it apart here, and in full motion, it's going to be a lot harder to pick apart. Here's the thing that I want to impress upon you guys, and I want you to help me impress upon the coaches. If they can't even create legal screen blocks going at 60% speed, what makes you think they can do it going at 100% speed? Right? Okay. If we all of a sudden say, all right, girls, go play 100% full out, right? Those defenders are running as hard as they can to that ball carrier. They've established their right of way. The ball carrier is running 100% upfield. Those screen blockers are going to have less than a split second. We'll come back to Mike Solden's question, right? Less than a split second to establish their right of place. And once they establish their right of place and they decide to move and there's contact, it's on the blocker every time. Okay? So, if they establish right of place and force that defender to go around them, good. Then they've probably set a really good legal screen block, and that's about all you can do in screen blocking. What they cannot do is continue to move downfield with the ball carrier, because if they're moving and there's contact, the foul is always going to be on the blocker. Always, 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 always. Okay? I hope that this clears this up for you all so that you'll feel better about what screen blocking downfield, right? We can twist this around. We can put it to a situation where the quarterback pitches to the running back, and then the quarterback is continuing to move around the outside with the running back, attempting to quote unquote screen block. Well, that screen blocker now moving with the running back has to establish right of place if they want to create a legal screen block. Otherwise, those defenders trying to get to the ball carrier, their right of way will trump that every single time. Okay? So I hope, once we start calling these fouls and once coaches start to realize that they just can't freaking do it, they'll stop trying. Right? We don't see this kind of blocking on punts, on downfield stuff, in states and college play that's been using a similar rule code to this. They just don't even try it because they know they can't legally do it. Or they do something that looks like what a few schools did last year, where it is literally just a player standing perfectly still downfield and the ball carrier runs right past them, screening off. That would look more like a traditional basketball screen. Again, we are going to try to not pull that in, but it would look more like that, where the ball carrier's rubbing shoulders with that absolutely stationary screen blocker to hold that place. Okay? It's all going to be on us and how we call the game. It's ever so important that we are calling these fouls quickly and early, establishing that this is a foul, and the coaches will learn. If we don't establish that this is a foul, they'll just keep doing it, and then we will have issues. So this is a foul we are going to call. Okay. We talked about punting last week. I just wanted to show you guys a couple of videos so you see what punting actually looks like. Our punts, Barry Sousa. Quickly, we got to move on. What you got?
It looks like he's having issues with his comms there, Marianne.
Okay, we'll go on then. Here's what punt looks like. Now this team's lined up kind of weird. They want to get a 5-yard head start. This is totally legal. There's only one formation requirement for all. Okay. There are one or two corrections I would make here, right? Our formation requirements, any scrimmage formation, it doesn't matter. A punt is a scrimmage kick, so it's still a scrimmage formation in flag football. I would attempt to make a couple of changes here, right? We see that this quarterback wants to, or this snapper wants to side snap this ball. That's fine, totally legal. She is standing, in my opinion, a little bit over the ball. She needs to back up into the backfield just a little bit more and make sure that her body is not over the ball, right? That's a requirement in our rule book, okay? For our formation requirements, as well as for these formation requirements, there's only two. One, there has to be a snapper on the line of scrimmage. Two, there has to be a person behind them to catch the snap. That's the only formation requirements, period. So this is absolutely illegal formation in this game and in our game, right? They want this 5-yard head start. They cannot move until the ball is kicked. If a Team K player is moving at the time of the kick, we have a false start. We're killing that play. It's dead. It is considered a false start. Blow your whistles. We're coming back. We're marching off a penalty. We're doing it all over again. Okay? If they are moving at the time of the kick, now they start to move with the kick, right? We're going to be a little bit more hardcore about this. We don't want them moving with the kick. We want the ball off the foot before those Team K players start to move. One other thing about this snap. Anybody notice how she picked the ball up off the ground and then chucked it backwards? In our game, this is an illegal snap, and we will call this an illegal snap, right? I know it's little. I know you got to stare at it pretty hard, but see if you can pick this up. Oh, I didn't go back far enough. Sorry. Right? Notice how she picks the ball right up off the ground and then chucks it backwards. See that?
It's not one single fluid motion.
Exactly. So that's an illegal snap. Thank you, Troy Leonard. We need to see a single fluid motion. Okay? If that ball gets muffed and hits the ground, it's a dead ball and it over on downs. Okay? But that play as it stands is legal in their game. It is also legal in our game, other than the snap and the players, the Team K players moving at the time of the kick.
Excuse me, will the ball be placed at the spot where the ball fell or back to the scrimmage?
If we have a muffed snap that hits the ground, it's going where it touched the ground.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, one more punt for you here. Hopefully it's not the same one.
Can you make the screen bigger so we can see?
Yeah, I can't. This program didn't allow me to do that. So here it is. This one's bigger.
If you're on a phone, you can zoom in with 2 fingers.
That's what I'm doing.
Okay, let's watch this again, and then we're going to talk about a couple of things that happened during this punt. We're going to not pay attention to the fact that they're not sharply snapping the ball, right? We know that already. We know that Team K may be moving slightly as this ball is kicked. We're going to kind of ignore that. Just know that it's part of our game. They cannot be moving at all until after the ball is kicked. We want to see the ball off the foot before Team K starts to move. She's also standing over the ball. It's a little bit better snap. Okay. So what we don't have is we don't have any touching until the blue team actually gets down there and picks up the ball, right? That was a hell of a punt. Pay attention to the blocker right at the Team R restraining line. Watch her coming up and attempting to block this kick. There we go. Good job, Lauren. Way to pick up that ball finally. Okay. So that blocker coming up to block that kick, that's totally legal. What she cannot do is cross her line of scrimmage, which in this game, they have marked for us, and it's that yellow cone. We don't do that in our game. Our mechanics don't call for that. But her trying to block this kick just like this is totally legal. What they cannot do is extend their arms out so that Team R's restraining line and the neutral zone, that's a plane of glass. So if she starts to reach over in an attempt to block that kick, we have a neutral zone infraction. And this neutral zone infraction is going to bring the ball back, and we're going to give them 5 yards and we're going to re-kick. Or they can change their declaration because we've just enforced a penalty. Okay? All right, let's talk about mechanics for just a moment. Your area instructional chairs or presidents all have the mechanics manual. There are going to be just a couple of tweaks to it. There will be a new version coming out with just a couple of changes. Like what we just talked about on those punts, that Team R can block that punt. So we need to change our mechanics just a little bit for the line judge to move to Team R's restraining line so that they can very clearly see if that player attempting to block the punt reaches through that plane of glass and breaks that plane of glass and has an encroachment foul. It's not their feet on the field. If they reach over and cross that plane of glass, then we have encroachment. Okay? I'll say kind of similar to tackle football, right? They can get set up perfectly with their hands and their feet, and then all of a sudden their helmet and their head are in the neutral zone and we have encroachment. It's a problem, right? So the girls are going to need to learn this, the coaches are going to need to learn this, and we're going to have to call the game so that we help them learn it. For our regular mechanics, our mechanics manual talks about triangle in. Our movement patterns need to be such that as we move down the field of play with the plays, we are maintaining a triangle around all of these players, right? In general, and 99% of the time, this means the referee is going to be moving to press box side, even if the quarterback is rolling away from the press box. Okay. If it's not, then we end up with a referee on top of a line judge. And since the line judge is going to stay on the line and the field judge is moving downfield, we need the referee to move to the press box side and toward the line of scrimmage when they move. Okay. They cannot roll away from the press box with the quarterback when the quarterback rolls that way. So what you would do is just turn with the quarterback, keep your feet planted, watch them. Line judge know that as the quarterback starts to roll that way, you're going to have more responsibilities. Chances are as they're rolling that way, we're going to have things that happen at the line of scrimmage that are going to be your call. Right? Line judges, even though you have things happening at the line of scrimmage, understand that the referee is going to be monitoring and maintaining all the action around the quarterback, including legal screen blocking. So you can take glances downfield to help the field judge with receivers downfield, and they do not have to be responsible for 8 players at a time. Okay? So this one makes sense, right? Quarterback's rolling, in this instance, left. Referee's going to roll with them. Line judge holds the line of scrimmage. Field judge in this instance would be responsible to cover the goal line because we have players that are working their way toward the goal line. Quarterback rolls in this instance to the right. Referees, our natural reaction is going to be to go with them. We will have to fight that and just move up toward the line of scrimmage to help the line judge. We know now line judge is going to help take over action at and around the line of scrimmage and around the quarterback in general, or the ball carrier. So we're going to move up so that we maintain that triangle in position and we don't end up with the referee standing right on top of the line judge. Okay, our field is narrower than a tackle football field. So if the referee starts rolling that way with the quarterback, we have a whole big area of field that doesn't have eyes on it, and that's going to be a problem. In our game, angles matter. We don't see flag guarding if we don't keep angles. We don't see contact fouls if we don't keep angles. Keeping these this triangled in positioning will help us have those angles that we need to be able to see. Okay? As we move, if the play is starting at or inside of the 5-yard line for within 5 yards of any line to gain, that's LTG, or the goal, line judge has the goal line. You will move at the snap. That goal line must be covered. Field judge has the end line or any of the action downfield if we're talking about a line to gain, right? And the referee, just remember to stay press box side. Also, referees, remember your line judge, your person responsible for the line of scrimmage, has just left the line of scrimmage, which means you are going to want to be aware of that and moving up quicker, keeping eyes for fouls at the line of scrimmage because you no longer have an official there. Okay. Snaps that are inside of 10 yards to go to a line to gain or the goal line, right? We're going to keep the field judge at the goal or at the line to gain. Field judge. Unless you have players that are just flying downfield and headed for the goal, you're going to stop at the 20 and officiate that line to gain. Okay? The goal line is the most important line on the field, but we have to be on top of those line to gains when there are only 3 of us out there on the field. Okay? The line judge needs to be ready to move and help if they can. Okay? And the referee, again, got to remember to stay press box side. So, because we need to be certain that these lines are covered, our lines to gain and our goal line, field judge and line judge, you've got to be in communication with each other on almost every single snap, indicating which line you intend to be responsible for. Just point to yourself and point to the line that you intend to cover. Your teammate, your crewmate across the field will give you a nice big nod, or they'll point at you indicating that they have seen you and they know you are going to cover that line, therefore they can cover their other responsibilities. But when we are talking about, especially within 5 yards, our line to gain needs to have an official standing on it, right? Or our goal line needs to have an official standing on it. And that person needs to occupy that spot as quickly as they can after the snap of the ball. Okay? So field judges don't play too far downfield unless play is kind of pulling you that way. Understand that there could be the 40-yard line, midfield line, that is a line to gain coming up that you may be needed at to cover. And the goal line is not threatened. But where we could have a close call is whether or not they got that ball across the 40-yard line for a first down. Okay? It's important. I can't impress upon you how important it is that there is an official covering the next line to gain or the goal line on every snap, right? You guys, if you choose to, and if you continue to officiate other forms of football, you will see this mechanic used everywhere. IFAF uses it. USA Football for their Olympic program uses it, right? NFL Flag uses these mechanics. When we're talking about 3 official mechanics, there is always an official on whichever line is the next to be threatened and gives something, whether it's 6 points or a first down. Always an official standing on that line to rule on that line. So just know that those mechanics you will see repetitively, and we are purposely trying to mirror those mechanics because we think that it's important that we're all kind of staying on the same page about some of these things. Okay. I want to go back here to some test questions that we didn't get to last week. Because they talk about snaps and illegal snaps, and I think that it's important for us to be talking about snapping, and then hopefully I'll cut off in about 5 minutes and we will give just a little bit of time to ask a few questions, because this will be most of you's last time with me, right? Okay. The ball must be snapped to the punter in illegal kicking situations. Yes, we talked about that already, so this answer is true. I will let you know, you will all be seeing these test questions again somewhere at some point this season. So if you want to take notes, please do, right? Has to be a legal snap. Just like we saw in that video, they can't just like pick it up off the ground and chuck it backwards. Now they can side snap it. We know that that's legal. A side snap is legal. I can take you back to this picture, right? Ignore the, beautiful picture, but my body's behind the ball, so I can side snap this no problem. I can also tip it up on its end. I can grab it like an ice cream cone just like that. That's not a problem. Everything about that is legal. I'm behind the ball, right? The punters, if we're talking about a scrimmage kick, they can snap it like this. There's the requirement that the person receiving the snap be 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. We are going to be somewhat loose with that. The rule was not intended for quarterbacks to not be able to take snaps under center. It was intended to keep this center from being crowded by multiple players in an intent to deceive. Okay? And you can quote me directly on that when coaches want to talk about things. It's in the state rule interpretations. They should all know. If they choose to not read documents that are sent to them, that's on them, not on me. Okay? Mr. Troy Leonard brought up already, the snap must be one quick and continuous motion backwards. Okay? I can't pick it up off the ground and then chuck it backwards. Quick and continuous motion. That answer is true. It is illegal for the snapper to simulate a snap to draw the defense off sides. It's true, right? I can't do that. We just talked about the player's feet who's receiving the snap. They must be at least 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. That is from our rule book. Our state interpretation is slightly different. You'll answer your test question from the rule book. Just know the state interpretation. All players must be motionless for 1 second prior to the snap. Okay, we can't have a player in motion. That motion must be parallel to the goal lines or backwards, right? Cannot be moving toward the opponent's goal line, essentially. And in fact, I think that's exactly how it reads in the rule book. The motion cannot be toward the opponent's goal line. Okay. Which of the following is legal during a forward pass? Throwing a pass from beyond the line of scrimmage? A second forward pass in the same down? Throwing a pass from behind the line of scrimmage? Or a lateral forward pass? I'm not even sure what I meant by that, but we know the answer. Here's theory, right? It is legal to throw a pass from behind the line of scrimmage. I cannot throw it from beyond the line of scrimmage. I cannot throw a second forward pass. Okay. A backwards pass. Don't get thrown off by this one. You know, when test writers write tests, they throw in weird, this question, even though I wrote it, threw me off like 6 times as I was proofreading this. A backwards pass is always, that says illegal, right? I kept reading it as legal. Thrown or handed parallel or away from the opponent's goal line. Sounds like a really good answer to me, right? Answer B on that one. A player may hand the ball forward to a teammate. Now we are talking about hand-to-hand handoffs, but the handoff is forward, meaning toward the opponent's goal line. Right? A player may hand the ball forward to a teammate at any time, only once per play, behind the line of scrimmage, or inside the neutral zone. Our answer here is C, behind the line of scrimmage. In our rule book, there is no limitation that they can only do it once. It simply says it must be done behind the line of scrimmage. A forward handoff is not a forward pass. Ergo, I could have a forward handoff, hand to hand handoff. The ball does not catch air. And that player could turn around and throw a legal forward pass, right? As long as it is a handoff, right? The only regulation on forward handoffs is that they must be behind the line of scrimmage. A fumbled snap, any snap, including on a punt that hits the ground, is a dead ball. The ball will be spotted at the point it contacted the ground. Okay? In our rule book and the way our rule book is now written, all fumbles, forward, backwards, sidewards, whatever they look like, are spotted at the spot they contact the ground. There is one exception, and that is a forward fumble into the end zone or into the end zone and out of bounds. That fumble is coming back to the spot where the ball was, where possession was lost. Every other one, and I know it's going to be a problem. I already foresee the issues here, so please understand. I don't need to hear your concerns, but any fumble will be spotted at the spot it touched the ground, except when the goal line is concerned. A fumble into the end zone or into the end zone and then landing out of bounds is brought back to the spot the ball was lost, where control of the ball was lost.
Hey, Marianne, Robert Hammond actually has a legitimate question. Could you go over when it's a safety and when it's not? A fumble itself. A fumble itself.
So yes, I can. Let's do this. So safeties. So let's say ball snapped from my own 5-yard line. I'm receiving the snap. My heels are on my own goal line. I muff that snap and the ball hits the ground in the end zone, right? So my heel, let's say my toes are, because then my body's in the end zone. I muff that snap and the ball contacts the ground in the end zone. Safety, right? The ball became dead in my own end zone. Safety. All of these will be treated the same as tackle football. So when we get into our tackle football rule books and we start talking about force and who is responsible for forcing the ball, who is responsible for the force that caused the ball to cross the plane of the goal line, right? If A is responsible for the force on the ball and the ball became dead in their own end zone, we will have a safety. Right? So in the scenario that I just talked about, my team A is responsible for the force because we snapped the ball. That's a force on the ball. Muff is not a new force, right? Ergo, that hasn't changed. And then the ball contacts the ground in the end zone. We have a safety. Okay. So it's an excellent question. I'm glad it was asked. I will refer you all to, and I understand that we have a lot of new officials here. And when it comes to force and safeties and all of these things, there's so many just things that we try to wrap our brains around. But everything regarding force, everything regarding momentum inside of our new tackle football rulebook is the same, or inside of our new flag football rulebook, sorry, is the same as it is in our NFHS produced tackle football rulebooks. So we didn't have to learn anything new. We just have to apply the same things that we already knew. If you're a newer official, you've only been doing this, you're a rookie this year, or it's only your second year, these are all things that will take you time to learn. I encourage you to get with your people inside of your individual units and get some extra help if you need. I know that there are a couple of tackle football videos or YouTube presentations. So on the CFOA YouTube page, I know Greg Truex has done several about force, several about momentum, and you can go back and watch those on YouTube. Just go onto YouTube and search California Football Officials Association. You will find it, I promise. And from there, you would be able to learn a little bit more about force and how force is going to be related to safeties and whether or not we're calling a safety or whether or not we're calling a touchback. I hope that that was at least somewhat of an answer. All right, I'm going to put a link in the chat right now so you all can get credit for this.
And Marianne, there's a question about spotting, middle of the field or hashes.
So we will be using hashes in California football officials, actually in all of California. It is a CIF by state adoption. We will be using hash marks. Those hash marks are 23 foot apart, centered on the field. If your field is centered on a normal tackle football field, it's the same width as your goalposts. So we're spotting off the goalpost. We will use position 1, 2, and 3. 2 is center, 1 is press box, 3 is away from press box. 3 positions, 1, 2, 3. We will be using hash marks to spot the ball. Should they decide to push the field to the side and use their home team sideline as a sideline and then mark another sideline, that's awesome. Let them do that. They need to put pylons 23 feet apart outside of the end zone so that you have an indicator to spot the ball for hash marks. They've all been made aware of this. It is all in their CIF by state adoption sheets that they have received. If I have any ICs on this call today, the CIF by state adoption that you received from me that is dated July 7th, that is free to be shared with anyone you want. Coaches, officials, players, I don't care who sees it, right? Everyone needs the information contained in that document. So if I have any ICs on this call today, please know that that information is essentially public knowledge. Everyone should be having it. Okay.
Hey, Marianne, your recordings, you have a webpage, right, that you're going to post them on?
Yeah. So again, all of these recordings will be posted on, let me stop the recording because they don't